I think my interest in education, with the intensity that I now bring to it, came in the middle of my mayoral term. The then superintendent of Minneapolis schools, Richard Green, asked our office to get involved with the problem of young people. And I didn't really know what he was talking about, but I had a deputy who had some awareness and some knowledge. So we embarked on an effort to both identify the kinds of problems that the superintendent was worried about and then looking for ways in which we could be helpful. We started, for example, some public forums to talk about the difficulties that young people were having. The first discussion centered on teen pregnancy and parenting and went on from there. Well, the DFL Education Foundation must be now 20 or 25 years old, and it was started with a very modest endowment from a very active political leader in the state. And his vision was that he wanted to see more opportunities to discuss public policy questions. And the DFL Central Committee authorized us to use the name DFL. And so we've plugged along over the years and had some conferences, and we hold discussion groups. But it was, well, so that's the background of the DFL Education Foundation. The Committee on the Achievement Gap, I became interested in trying to bring a tighter focus to this problem after I heard a speaker in Wisconsin, somebody who was an expert in education, and not from the upper Midwest, but make a reference to Minneapolis as having one of the worst achievement gaps in the United States. That really startled me. I knew that our school district, like many urban school districts, faced a real challenge in educating all of their children successfully, but the idea that Minneapolis ranked near the bottom really troubled me. So I asked the board of the DFL Education Foundation if it would be agreeable that we would start a committee on the achievement gap. That was about 3 years ago now. And since then we've been holding meetings, probably on the average about once a month, looking at different schools, different opportunities for children. We've had speakers from a variety of sources talk about the issue. What we know, just reading the reports that the schools provide, is that a large number of children don't find that schooling works for them. They don't get very good grades. A number of them will end up dropping out. Graduation rates are not nearly what they ought to be. So then the question is, well, why is that? And what can be done about it? And we're probably one of 1,000 groups studying this issue all over the United States, but it's a tough problem, and I think it deserves a lot more public awareness than it has at the moment. This is really the first time that we asked committee members to kind of size up what they'd heard and share among the whole group where they thought we ought to be headed. What had we learned that we should work on in the future? And they went through a list of about 25 possibilities, all of which I think represented ways in which the achievement gap could be narrowed. But they chose a half a dozen as sort of the priority areas. Well, there have been some programs in the United States that have not only provided quality preschool opportunities for children, but have tracked what happened to the children through the years. One of the earliest was the Perry Preschool program in Ypsilanti, Michigan. They've now tracked the kids that were in that program for over 40 years and have looked how they did in school, how they did in getting jobs, going to college, their earnings. And in that case, and in several others that have followed, the evidence is fairly compelling that when children had that opportunity to become school ready, as we sometimes say, through a really quality preschool education, their life trajectory is much more positive. They're more likely to stay in school, they're more likely to graduate, they're more likely to go to college. In short, we haven't really begun to provide adequate funding, even for the neediest of children. And in that respect, we're falling behind the severe budget problem this year with a governor who's unwilling to raise revenue. I think the chances are not very good. Some careful research has shown that more time on task for the children, they'll learn more. A very interesting study in Baltimore, they concluded, the researchers who studied the children in Baltimore, that 2/3 of the achievement gap was attributable to the fact that they were out of school during the summertime. And so if you kept school going year-round, presumably they wouldn't experience that shortfall. And that happens with kids from lower income groups whose families often don't provide the at-home enrichment that middle-class kids get on the natural. So, well, that's one specific evidence, but the efforts that are being made now to create schools to do better by these children almost all use longer days and have a longer school year. One of the really successful examples in Minneapolis is the school known as Harvest Prep Seed Academy. It's run by Eric Mahmoud. It's on Olson Highway. Their school day is roughly equivalent to a business day. It starts in the morning and goes right through the end of the afternoon. And they have a longer school year. And their children are doing much better.